Hello, my name is MD Mehdi Farhad. I am a graduate student at Mississippi State University, Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. I would like to welcome you to our presentation entitled Unmanned Ground Vehicle-Based Mapping of Forest Transmissivity using GPS Measurements. My co-author is Dr. Mehmet Krum, who is an assistant professor at Mississippi State University, Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering, and co-director of Information Processing and Sensing Lab, in short, IMPRESS Lab. Here is the outline of our presentation. I will talk about the motivation behind this work, the concept and methodology of the experiment, and finally, I will talk about the result and future work. As the presentation goes forward, you will see the experiment is evolving from a helmet-based system to a UGV-based system. The video is showing what the upward-looking GPS receiver is seeing while receiving data under forest canopy. For routine soil moisture retrievals over vegetated terrain, the spaceborne missions such as Soil Moisture Active Passive (SMAP) and Soil Moisture and Ocean Salinity (SMOS) uses a zero-order radiative transfer model commonly known as tau omega model that relates the observed brightness temperature to ground reflectivity, vegetation scattering, and transmissivity. In the forested area, the vegetation water content is more than 5 kg per meter square. It has commonly been excluded from the spaceborne soil moisture product due to the masking effect of the canopy. Even though tau omega model is being applied to estimate soil moisture under tree canopy, these retrievals are still considered to be research products, as their validation is challenging at the satellite footprint, which is 20 to 40 km resolution. The typical ground truth technique to estimate vegetation transmissivity can be grouped into two categories: discrete scatterer and corner reflector approach. Discrete scatterer approach requires detailed measurement of size or angle distribution and dielectric constant of the tree constituents. These vegetation characteristics are obtained by distractive tree sampling, while the corner reflector approach relies on the expected strong return from a corner reflector under trees by taking the difference between measurement in forested and open areas. These techniques are well suited for a small-scale field experiment. However, they are time-consuming and laborious for large area validation effort. The distractive tree sampling requires of cutting down the trees and take measurements of each section of the trees. This technique takes too much time and effort and also not good for the trees. To characterize vegetation transmissivity of a large area like 40 km resolution, we need a more practical solution. In this experiment, we investigated the feasibility of using inbuilt global navigation satellite system GNSS chipset within the Android smartphone and a custom GPS receiver to map relative canopy transmissivity using an unmanned ground vehicle. The experiment setup involves a UGV equipped with a smartphone or a custom receiver on top of a stabilizing gimbal under the tree canopies that receives attenuated direct signal, and a separate phone or custom receiver placed on a tripod that provides a reference signal in an open area. The gimbal placed in an inverted mode to orient the moving smartphone or the custom receiver in the same direction of the stationary receiver to minimize the antenna effect. The canopy transmissivity is the difference between direct signal and the attenuated direct signal, considering the ground multipath is negligible. As a proof of concept, we attached a gimbal on a helmet and placed the GPS receiver on top of the gimbal and worked under the forest canopy. The figure on the right shows the attenuation heat map across the satellite footprint. Later, we developed a UGV-based system that replaced the human. The signal received under the forest canopy are expected to go through multipath within the vegetation and with ground. As illustrated on the left side figure, the first order scattering mechanism could be these 5 possible scenarios. Number 1, reflection from ground, followed by scattering from canopy towards the antenna. Number 2, reflection from ground. Number 3, scattering from canopy towards the antenna. Number 4, attenuated direct signal. Number 5, scattering from canopy, followed by reflection from ground. Among these paths, number 1, 2 and 5 involve ground reflection, which are undesirable since they can distort the difference methodology if they are substantial. The receiver on a moving platform has to be elevated above the ground to navigate it through the forest floor. Thus, our proposed setup requires verification of multipath scattering assumption before we draw any conclusion on estimated transmissivity values. So our working hypothesis is: number 1, ground multipath number 1, 2 and 5 is negligible under forest canopy. On the open area on the right side figure, mechanism 1, 3 and 5 does not exist. So our hypothesis number 2, ground multipath number 2 can be suppressed with the receiver placed on the ground in an open area. In the early 2020, we performed several experiments with a smartphone and custom U-Blocks receiver to prove our hypothesis. We performed the experiments in the forested and open area with and without placing electromagnetic absorber around the receiver. We also used ground plane of different size to observe the ground multipath effect. For the time constraint, Here we are only going to present the result of a smartphone based receiver, although the U-Blox receiver also produced data with similar quality. First, we used two identical phones to check the consistency of data over different days. It is clear that the reception from two identical phones follow nearly identical trend under both forested area shows on the left side figure and open area on the right side figure. Moreover, it is evident that the CN0 data on the left plot fluctuates under forest canopy strongly, that indicate the multipath is much stronger compared to the received direct signal at the open area on the right side plot. The blue line on both figure represents the satellite elevation angle referred to right y-axis. As we are trying to identify the source of multipath, we experimented with different size ground plane, 18-inch and 12-inch diameter circular plane on both forested and open area. The result shows that the size of the ground plane made a significant impact on the received signal in open area displayed on the right side plot. On the other hand, its impact was negligible in the forested area, indicating that the signals were mostly received through upper hemisphere and the ground multipath did not contribute much to the result. Finally, to further verify the negligible ground multipath effect in the forested area, we placed electromagnetic observer on the forest floor around the receiver to check if there is any changes can be detected on the observed signal. As displayed on the left side figure, the signal fluctuation remains very similar and there was no significant impact on the observer on the received signal. This result further support our hypothesis that the multipath due to the ground reflection are negligible under forest canopy. The figure on the right side shows that the strength of CN0 data received in forested area are generally lower than the data received in the open area. This difference represents the variation of attenuation across the various elevation angle. In some cases, the forest signal is stronger than those in open area. This can be explained by mechanism number 3 explained in slide 9 as it adds to the attenuated direct signal. The figure on the left shows the site map where we performed our experiments. The red marker A and B represents the stationary receiver experiment in the forested area and open area. The yellow line represents the path of the rover that navigates under the forest canopy while receives attenuated GPS signals. The image on the right shows the rover equipped with GPS receiver. Here, the bottom figure represents the fast forward video of the rover moving through the forest. On the top right figure, you can see as the receiver is moving through the forest, it is receiving the attenuated GPS signal on its receiver. The color bar is representing the signal strength. On the top left figure, the blue line is representing the satellite's elevation angle. As the rover is moving through the forest, the satellite's elevation angle is also changing. The right y-axis of the top left figure represents the satellite's elevation angle. In the top right figure, you can see we are performing two circles. One is a small circle and another one is a large circle. The small circle represents an area where there are medium height trees. The big circle represents the pine trees which are pretty tall, and the signal is experiencing high attenuation in the pine trees area than the medium height trees. In this paper, we investigated the feasibility of using inbuilt GPS chipsets within a smartphone and custom receivers to generate large-scale canopy transmissivity heat map using a UGV platform. We provided the first empirical insight on the effect of multipath on vegetation transmissivity estimates on a moving platform that has to be elevated above the ground to navigate it through the forest floor. The primary result shows that the contribution of multipath scattering involving ground reflection under forest canopy is negligible. As the future work, we will collect more data. We will analyze canopy hemispherical images as well as LiDAR forest canopy data and correlate with the attenuated signal. We will correlate the signal attenuation with the canopy optical thickness and quantify the vegetation water content with respect to the GPS signal attenuation. More results will appear in a journal article which is currently being prepared. Thank you for listening my talk. Have a good day.